Orange County's rich, but is it generous too? What's being done for the county's 13,000 homeless or 1,300 motel kids? We hear from a former corporate executive who now heads up OC's United Way, Max Gardner, next on Inside OC. Inside OC is brought to you by 5 Point. 5 Point is an independent real estate development company with assets under management across California. 5 Point is a proud sponsor of public television and community programming. Hi, I'm Reiff. Welcome to Inside OC. The good life, beachfront homes, fast cars, wealth, all part of the county's image. But for too many OCers, there's a different reality: homelessness, hunger, want. So what's being done to help those who live in poverty amid so much plenty? My guest is well suited to answer that question. He's succeeded in the rarefied air of the corporate boardroom, and now he's working to help those who struggle just to get through the day. The CEO of Orange County United Way, Max Gardner. Welcome, Max.
Nice to be here with you, Rick.
So Orange County, by any objective measure, is a rich county. Is it a generous county?
Yeah, I think the answer to that is yes, it is, but you really have to dig deep to see what's going on. One of the things that surprised me the most when I left the corporate world and went into the nonprofit world was the huge number of people that are working hard to make life better for people in Orange County. And it's so hidden from so many of us that are in the corporate world on a daily basis. We just don't see all the work that's being done.
Give us an idea. What's an example?
Well, I think you mentioned first the homelessness issue. There are a large number of nonprofit organizations, government folks that are working hard to solve the issues that so many people face in Orange County today. I got to serve on the commission to end homelessness for a couple of years, and that's where we bring all the folks together that are working on homelessness. But it's kind of away from a lot of the prime residential areas of Orange County, so people don't see it, so that it's just not visible that it's there or being done.
How about in terms of money raised? What did you raise in the past year?
Last year, total money raised for Orange County United Way was about $23 million, which we can always use more. It goes quickly when you're solving some of the problems that we have.
So $23 million, how does that compare, like on a per capita basis, to other
communities?
cities?
I think the numbers on a percentage basis, if you look at overall income in Orange County, the overall charity is about the same. It's roughly a 2% number, kind of national. That's pretty standard around. The question is, where does that money go? Yeah. Because in my mind, at least, too much of the money that's raised in Orange County goes to colleges back east, or it leaves the county and goes to work elsewhere. Whereas I'm interested in seeing the money go to work right here in Orange County to help the community.
Yeah. So the image of Orange County is this place of, kind of nouveau riche, who are kind of into themselves and selfish. Do the numbers that you're suggesting, maybe the numbers don't really bear that out?
Of the nouveau riche, I think Orange County, parts of it are exactly that. But parts of it are so different than what you see on the old TV shows of the OC, if you will. The fact is that on the federal numbers, about 11% of our county lives in poverty. But if you look at the adjusted numbers for the cost of living in Orange County, it's almost 25%. Almost 1 out of every 4 individuals in our county lives in some level of poverty, and that's unacceptable. And not only is it bad for them, it's bad for us.
Yeah. When I hear those numbers, though, like 1 out of 4, it's almost like, I just can't believe that. I can't believe that. And does that count? Sometimes when they talk about poverty, they don't include the government payments, the transfer. In other words, many people are poor, but they do get welfare payments and things like that bring them up. Does that 1 in 4 number, that's before you factor in government help?
Actually, it's not. This is a Stanford analysis that was done, and they adjust for for the government subsidies that individuals get, and it's 1 in 4. But what you have to remember too is it's when you think about poverty, people think of poverty as one level of poverty, that it's somebody that's abject, that's living on the streets. And poverty really can be defined more as somebody who has to make a decision every day on how do they invest their dollars, how do they spend their money, do they pay their rent, do they fix their car, do they get the medicine for their kids, do they buy books. It's those constant trade-offs that put pressure on people that is really a definition of poverty that's really much more prevalent than what you think of in terms of people living on the streets.
Okay, and to that point, the United Way now has a campaign called FACE. And I'm going to ask you about that in a moment. But first, let's take a look at an excerpt from one of your videos, which is part of this FACE campaign.
Despite living in one of the most prosperous counties in the nation, many of our Orange County neighbors see only the face of uncertainty. Thousands of local children and their families struggle with the most basic needs, like better education, medical care, food and shelter. Today, more than 4,000 Orange County students drop out of high school. Nearly 30,000 Orange County children are without secure housing, and more than 1/3 of our children are overweight or obese. Many of our neighbors lack access to adequate health care. That's why United Way is committed to helping the next generation of Orange County children succeed by focusing on the building blocks for a good quality of life. With the strong foundation of a solid education, a financially empowered workforce, a healthy body, and a stable home, Orange County's next generation can face the future with confidence and turn their dreams into realities. With your help, we can turn the tide on the face of insecurity over the next 10 years. United, we will cut the high school dropout rate in half. United, we will reduce the percentage of financially unstable individuals and families by 25%. United, we will increase the number of healthy youth in Orange County by 1/3. United, we can reduce the number of homeless and housing insecure children by half.
So Max, that's a tall order you're taking a bite of here.
Right. Yeah, so let me make it clear too, those objectives, those goals that we established, cutting the dropout rate in half, et cetera, those are not United Way goals, those are community goals. We actually created those with the help of a large number of people throughout the community that are working on these issues on a daily basis. And we worked with them to formulate the goals that we all want to strive for. And part of it is because working together to solve one problem, more common problems, we're all much more effective than we are if everybody's just out doing their own thing.
Yeah, because I was thinking as I was watching it, wow, this is a lot for United Way. This is like something that it requires the entire community. So tell me, FACE, it's called FACE, F-A-C-E. Right. What does FACE stand for? And tell me a little more about how this came about.
Sure, so FACE stands for Fund, Advocate, Collaborate, and Educate, because that's the way we at United Way do our work. Everybody knows us as a funder. They know that we raise dollars and that we work with to find the right nonprofit organizations or other organizations to work with to help solve the problems that we just heard about. But it goes way beyond that, because advocacy is a big part too as well. We want to make sure that the government is listening to what's going on in the community, that people in the community know what's happening. When we talk about educate, it's not educate our students, it's educate the broader community on the conditions that exist, the fact that they should care about them, and that there are things that they can do about them. And communication. Communication is we just have to make sure that we're all working together and collaborating. And that's working together is really the key to solving these problems. And when you talk about those goals, they're not goals for today. They're goals for the next 10 years. That we want to be working towards this. And what we've found, and what I think you learn in the business community, is that you have to have long-term goals of what you're trying to accomplish. You have to have somewhere you're aiming towards in order to really be effective in doing that. And there's an awful lot of people in this community that are working hard to make people more comfortable, to make sure they have a place to sleep, to make sure that they're housed or that they're fed, or they're healthy. But our goal is to go beyond that, is to really make substantive change so that 10 years from now, we look up and the conditions that exist today are significantly different than they are in 10 years.
Okay. So, and to what you've been saying, there's some people call it 1,000 points of light. Many different folks. We've got government agencies. We've got the secular nonprofits. We've got religious groups. How do these, do they work enough together, and how does it all come together?
Well, I think the answer is they work together. Do they work enough together? It can always be better. Like everything else, it can always be a little bit better. But let me give you a good example, because we talked about homelessness, and the largest money that comes into the county to help homelessness comes from HUD, and that actually runs through the County of Orange. And so they working with the Commission to End Homelessness, allocate those dollars out to different agencies or to different programs, Section 8, et cetera. But how do they make sure that that money is used as effectively as possible? And how do you make sure the programs are matched up with the people that need help? Well, one way you do it is by having what we refer to as coordinated entry. And coordinated entry is I like to think of it almost as the Match.com for the homeless community, okay? So the idea is, if you're homeless and you have to call 15 or 20 or 30 agencies to find the right place that's right for you or your family, or that takes pets, or that takes children, you may not match up with the right organization for a long time. More importantly, that agency might take the wrong people, the people that could get help somewhere else. And so the idea for coordinated entry that right now is being run by 211 Orange County is to make sure that we make that match as quick and early and effectively as we can, so the limited resources that we have are helping the most vulnerable people in our community and really being more effective that way. So that's a great example. That's a private organization, 211, which is funded in part by Orange County United Way, but it really works hand in hand with the county government.
And just the county government? How about some of the other nonprofits?
No, all the nonprofits are referred to by 211. So if you're an organization that provides services, whether it's in Laguna Beach or whether it's in Brea, you're part of that system of care where 211 knows your capacity. They know you have availability. They know what your requirements or what your facility allows you to take, and they match you up with the person or the family that's best.
Right.
And that's just a classic example of how we don't have to expand the resources we have. We just have to use the resources that we have at our fingertips better.
Very good. Why do we have so much homelessness?
Well, I mean, part of the problem is it's just an expensive place to live, Rick. Orange County, you've seen the numbers on what rent has done over the past 10, 12, 15 years, and I got to watch it firsthand when I was in the real estate industry. But the cost of housing for people that live in Orange County is excessive.
And I do want to get into that in a moment after we establish your residential bona fides.
Okay.
But I meant more generally, not just in Orange County, in Los Angeles, everywhere nationally. It seems to me it's a much bigger problem now than it was years ago. So why is that?
I don't know for sure that it's a bigger problem or if it's just a better known problem than it's been. My suspicion is it's a bigger problem, and that probably I can't tell you all the reasons of why that is. I just know it is.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about your career. You started, or you for a long time before you came to United Way. You were in the corporate world. Tell us a little bit about what Max Gardner was doing.
Yeah. So I was I'm an old accountant by training, and spent a few years in a public accounting firm, but then went into the real estate industry in 1980. And from that point on, I worked in the residential real estate industry. And for the last 25 years of that, I was specifically in the apartment business, first up and down the West Coast, and then more recently with the Irvine Co.
Right. You spent how many years with the Irvine Co?
I was there for 11 years.
11 years, and you ran the apartment, their apartment division. So about how many apartment units did you oversee the construction of?
When I joined Irvine Apartment Communities, we had about 20,000 apartments, and during the 11 years that I was there, we built just over 20,000 more. So when I left, and we bought one project, so when I left, we were a little over 40,000. So we built about 2,000 apartments every year while I was there.
Okay, so nobody better to ask, especially now that you're working on the other, or you're sort of on the other side and seeing people that are having trouble with affordability and things. What do we need to do
to solve the housing problem? Well, I think it is that 1,000 points of light. It's everybody working together to solve the problem. There are three things in my mind that have to happen quickly in Orange County. One is we have to have the coordinated entry system that we're working on. It's fledgling, it's getting there, but it's working. Number two is we have to establish the homeless service center that has now been approved, and the land is being purchased by the County of Orange, and that's scheduled to open late next year. And I think it's important to understand that that's not a shelter per se. It's not just a place that people drop in to get out of the rain. It's a place that people get referred to get off the street, to get some help, but also to get the support services that they need to find a location that's a permanent residence for them. The intent of that service center is not to just give somebody a place to sleep for the night. It's to get them off the street long enough to find where they should go to next.
What do we do about those working poor, the folks? They're not homeless, but they're struggling. They can't afford Orange County, so they're spending half their income on gasoline, commuting for many miles. Is there anything we can do for them?
Well, there is. I'm glad you asked that, because that's actually where we spend more of our time and energy at United. We're part of the overall continuum of care here in Orange County, helping the severely, the chronically homeless. But more of our time is spent on families and children in homelessness or that are ill-housed. And so one of the programs that we support is called rapid rehousing. And so the whole point of that is to get people out of unstable housing and into a permanent housing situation where they can stay long-term. Now, the key there is they may not be able to afford that apartment or that rental unit, but with some support on a short-term basis, and then some job coaching, and then some other support, social services, what we call wraparound services, to get that family stabilized, to get them to where they can stay in that place. And the beauty of rapid rehousing is you do it in apartments or other places that people can live long term. And once they get there, they're home. The biggest problem for housing oftentimes for families is that they move place to place to place to place. And that has not only serious implications on the family, but think about the kids that are trying to go to school, that are moving from school to school. And if we want them to get a good education, they have to stay in one location. So rapid rehousing gets them into a spot where they can stay on a long-term basis, hopefully with a short-term amount of support. There's so many people that are living on the razor's edge that just need a little bit of help to get through an emergency or to get over a very difficult time where they lost their job and they're going to get a new job, but what do they do in the interim? And they can fall into that abyss real quickly where they can't recover. And so that's a key for us.
So on this rapid rehousing, who provides those units? Because obviously anybody who owns a unit wants to get as much rent as they possibly can for the unit. That's what you used to do, right? And so how do you find these units that are affordable for these folks?
So they're not affordable units in terms of the normal context. They're market rent apartments, but we work with the local apartment managers and the California Apartment Association to identify properties where we can go and get a few apartments. And so what happens is, if you're the homeless family or the individual with the family, we'll work with you. You actually sign the lease, but we work with the landlord to say, look, we'll make sure, and it's not really us, it's the agencies that we support. We have 5 agencies we do with this with in Orange County. They provide the backstop and say, look, if you have a problem with Rick and his house, we'll make good on it. He make sure, and we're going to support him. We're going to be there coaching him. We're going to be working with the family. We're going to be making sure that he's got the job training and he stays in his job so they can stay there long term. And then gradually, as that family gets stabilized, you pull those services back and they're there. So they're in a market rate apartment long term and they'll stay there.
Wow. That is, there's a lot of moving parts in something like this. And so this is, I mean, it's kind of like running a corporation, isn't it? So
this is complicated work.
Yeah, it is. So how did you make that transition from the Irvine Company to United Way? How did that come about?
Well, I certainly didn't plan it out. It was not in my long range planning. When I left the Irvine Company in 2010, I was already on the board at United Way, so I was playing a role. I'd been chair of the Tocqueville Society, so I was engaged. I knew there was work being done there, and then not long after that, my predecessor at United Way left, and so the board asked me to step in on an interim basis, just while we looked for a new CEO. And I spent a little bit of time there and got to know the people, got to know the mission and the work that was being done, and candidly seeing the opportunity that was there and what could be accomplished at that United Way, and I got excited about it. And so after a few months, I told the chairman at that time, said, if you want me to stick around for a bit of time, I will. So
you wound up volunteering yourself?
So I did it as a volunteer for 8 months. I was an unpaid volunteer as the interim CEO. And then I decided that, gee, if I'm going to do this, I might as well go all in.
So you moved from, a top-tier company, one of the premier, if not the premier real estate company in America, and now you're at this nonprofit. What kind What struck you? What it's like? What were the differences?
You don't see the similarities between the two? No, probably the one thing that occurred to me, running a nonprofit really should be a lot like running a business. You need a strategic plan. You need an organization chart. You need the right players in the right roles. You need all the same things. You need the capital, et cetera, to be able to do it. The one thing that struck me about the nonprofit world, when I was in the real estate industry, whenever I had a project that made sense, that I could say, look, this is a good investment, we should be doing this, I could find the money for it. That's not the case with United Way. I can't always find the resources to do the number of things that we've identified, and that's a challenge for us.
Well, you have that 24 million you're raising.
But it goes quicker than I'd like. So.
How about organizationally? You bring your perspective, or you made the comment that nonprofits should be run by businesses. Are a lot of nonprofits not run like businesses?
Well, I don't mean to imply that they're not. But I do think a lot of nonprofits are started by people that really have a heart or a passion for what they want to do, and they're really mission focused, and that's a good thing. But they may approach it in a different manner. And more to the point is when small nonprofits start to become bigger, when they have somebody who's really just got a heart and they want to roll up their sleeves and help somebody. And as that organization gets bigger, they may not have the skills or the resources or the mindset to run a business. It's not unlike a startup organization. Startups go through changes just like that, in the tech world, et cetera. And so I think they have to evolve over time. I think most of the nonprofits in Orange County, at least the ones that we work with, because we're very particular about who we work with and who we fund. We have a very rigid set of criteria, and we're there all the time working with them.
In fact, how many nonprofit or how many entities do you fund at United Way?
We fund at a meaningful level probably about 30 or 35
and
organizations.
How many are there that are knocking on your door?
There in Orange County there's over 3,000 registered nonprofits. A lot of those are inactive or very small, but I'd say there's probably 500 nonprofits in Orange County that are really worth thinking about or mentioning, and But we've been very specific on what we want to accomplish. It used to be that United Way, any nonprofit could come to United Way and look for grant funding, and that was years ago. We're much more specific about what we want to do these days. So we put out RFPs to say, this is the work that we want to accomplish, and if you're already working in this or you can do this, then you should apply for this grant. So it's a much more specific.
When you come in, when you came in, did you make changes organizationally in the culture or anything like that?
Yeah, I think we did make some changes. First of all, we tried to make sure we streamlined and kept only the people that were really critical to getting the work done. But we focused on where we had to go as an organization and making sure we had the right people. So there was some evolution of people around the roles. I'm really pleased with the team we have today. We have an exceptionally strong, dedicated team. It's smaller than it was when I came into the organization, but I'd say it's more effective than it was.
As one who has been in the major corporation and now is dealing with people who are often living on the edge, what do you think of the whole issue of income inequality? What's your take on that?
Well, if you just start with minimum wage, if you look at what minimum wage is and what it would get you in Orange County, you realize that it's almost impossible for somebody to live on minimum wage in Orange County. If say somebody earns $10 an hour and they work 2,000 hours, that's $20,000 a year. We just talked about what rent is. I mean, you better have 2 or 3 or 4 roommates in order to afford your apartment and in order to be able to live like that. So what happens is, you have 2 parents that are working in a household, or if you have a single mother, she may be working a job and a half, et cetera, and using resources. So it's difficult for someone to live on that wage. I think we have to work towards getting our basic pay up for the bottom tier in our community. And I think there is income inequality that is much more visible when you begin doing some work like I'm doing right now.
And so how do you do that? What's the answer? Do you feel that the kind of nonprofits that you're working with and the whole mission of United Way, is it doing enough not just to take care of people who are dependent, but getting some of those dependent people not to be dependent?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, our whole approach is, how do you make sure people are self-sufficient? How do you make sure they can take care of themselves? And you saw on the video, if you think about it, people need 4 things in order to be self-sufficient. They need an education, they need a job, they need to be healthy, and they need a place to live. So it's education, income, health, and housing. And if you provide those 4 things to people, they can take care of themselves. The key is you can't just do one.
Yeah.
So if you want to focus on education, you better make sure that that kid's got a place to eat, to sleep tonight, and that they've got food in their belly, and that all the things that we talk about wrapping around that. Because if they're moving from school to school, or if their parents aren't gainfully employed, or if they don't have a place to live, they're not going to get an education. I don't care how good the teachers are, and we have really good teachers in Orange County, but there more needs to be done to support the educational system, not in the classroom, but around the edges of the classroom.
Well, Max, I can tell you are passionate about what you're doing. Just quickly, any plans to do something else now? You've conquered the nonprofit world, the corporate world. Any other?
I think I'm a ways away from conquering the nonprofit world, but we've certainly made progress. I don't have any immediate plans for what I'm going to do. I'm going to stay working with United Way for as long as I can make a real contribution, and as long as they need me, and then I'll probably slow down a little bit, but stay active in the community, play with my grandkids more.
The grandkids, always a good idea. Well, thanks so much for coming on.
Nice to be here, Rick. Thank you very much.
Well, that's it for now. Thanks to my guest, United Way Chief Max Gardner. You can watch this show and past shows by going to pbssocal.org or rickreiff.com. Also, you can catch the shows and our post-show open mic chatter on YouTube. And follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks for watching. See you again on Inside OC. Inside OC is brought to you by 5 Point. 5 Point is an independent real estate development company with assets under management across California. 5 Point is a proud sponsor of public television and community programming.